All right, good morning, everybody. So I updated rather the attendance again for so now I try to update every time it takes place. Please keep in touch with me if you see something that's not right. All the data is stored, so we can easily go back and fix whatever needs to be fixed in order to make sure that everything's right. We will not have a quiz today, unfortunately, so we will have hopefully 3 quizzes next week before the exam. We'll try to squeeze the 3 quizzes or 2, at the very least. So we have enough questions to count I'm thinking Thursday will be no lecture, and so I will probably come here as well and do sort of review that I usually do. And it's going to be a very simple review. There will be no slides because I'm going to be using the slides you all have. All right, and then we'll take, of course, any questions and stuff like that. Otherwise, any comments and concerns? Yes.
What day will the lectures stop for the exam?
I will know by Tuesday. I will let you know. I don't think there's any overtime. There's some probably doing 2,000, but I don't think there's any overtime. And I usually don't give that exam back anyway, just because of the limited resources. Okay. MCAT people, please email me so I have a record, how many people are taking the exam. And I'll try to email individual plans for those people and people with other special needs to talk about. Okay, please keep in touch and let me know so I'll be able to accommodate those circumstances. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. Today's lecture is very exciting because today actually officially marks our beginning of the second phase of the course, the second part of the course. That's why I always get excited on Fridays. And so what we're going to be talking about, well, of course, we're going to step back, talk about a little bit of fatty acid and just as a review, and then we are going to delve into metabolic concepts. Time permits, we will kind of see what's ahead as far as glycolysis. And so I'm recording, by the way, so I've already started recording. So let's step back as we go, and let's talk about certain things, just highlights. So we mentioned that we have 3 kind of membrane lipids. We have the phospholipids, which have 2 possible platforms. One of them is glycerol, which you need to know the structure of. You need to know that it's esterified to fatty acids on carbons number 1 and 2, while carbon number 3 is phosphorylated, and that is then attached to an alcohol. We talked about alcohols, we know serine and glycerol, and I said that we don't have to memorize the rest of the alcohols and their structures. Right? We mentioned a little bit about cardiolepine as one of those specialized membrane lipids that are in the mitochondria and the chloroplasts. And then the second platform is sphingosine, which is actually almost a fatty acid itself because it has this very long fatty hydrocarbons. And here we have an amide with our fatty acid. It carries 1 fatty acid, and then it's phosphorylated here at the OH, and so you have something like phosphorylcholine, and that's usually this particular one, sphingomyelin, is found in the membranes of the neurons in the nervous system. And the second one was glycolipids, which is basically carbohydrates plus lipids, and that sphingosine also is the carrier of the fatty acid. And we mentioned glucose or galactose can be some of those monosaccharides attached to those cerebrosides or glycolipids. Okay, we talked about gangliosides and the difference between glucose and galactose, just as examples that we are aware of. And then the third one is cholesterol. And cholesterol, of course, is not only part of the membrane, or the biomembrane of the cells, but also it actually is a precursor for many hormones and other extremely in the cell. We also had a chance to talk about the difference between thermophiles and mesophiles. Thermophiles are organisms that live at very high temperatures. They tolerate high temperatures. And mesophiles, like us and like other bacteria, normal bacteria, can live in regular temperatures. And we've noticed two differences here. The phospholipid, the one that had visceral ester bond, actually there's no longer an ester bond here, it's an ether bond. And we've noticed that there is extra methyl groups on that long aliphatic chains, enhancing the weak van der Waals bonds and hence increasing it over the length of the fatty acid. Of course, as a thought experiment, would you think they would have more or less of the saturation in the membrane? Would be more saturated, would be less unsaturated, but you have more single bonds, so you have this strong bonds to maintain the integrity of the membrane. All right. And of course, then we mentioned other differences in the membranes between different tissue types. Yeah, so we have, of course, different kind of lipids, but then we also have different kind of proteins, and really this is what ultimately gives the tissue its specificity, hence the cell type specificity. And we've seen, of course, 3 examples of SDS stage of membrane from red blood cells and photoreceptor cells and muscle cells. And we've seen, obviously, they vary very widely, which is really an incredible thing if you think about it, because we all, every cell in our bodies have the exact same genetic content, but with that differentiation in different tissues, they basically behave differently. They're all dipping from the same encyclopedia of genes, but they're using it differently, and some of them actually not using some of those genes at all. So it's really. As far as the protein association with the lipids, we mentioned that those proteins can be integral membrane proteins, as in they are actually physically inside that lipid bilayer through certain motifs that we've seen, like the beta barrels and alpha helices. And then we mentioned that there are peripheral membrane proteins. Peripheral membrane proteins can be either anchored through specialized molecules that are also hydrophobic, or can be associated with either the membrane or the other integral membrane proteins through weak bonds, ionic interactions, hydrogen bonds, these kind of stuff. Usually, by the way, when we are in the lab, it is very easy to extract the peripheral proteins by simple agitation, because they really have weak bonds. The integral membrane proteins take breaking physically that protein, that membrane, and killing the cells in order to get those stuff out. These are some of the anchors in the peripheral proteins. We've seen, of course, prostaglandin synthase as an example of a protein that lives in the cytoplasm, but it needs to interact with arachidonic acid, and it's anchored to the membrane through something like that. No structures need to be memorized, just the features of those anchors need, of course, to be known. Melting of the membrane is very important. It's simply like melting of the DNA. It has the same kind of profile. So you increase the temperature, the two bilayer leaflets separate from each other as temperature increases, and of course then it rapidly increases, and that halfway through that linear portion of the curve, you'll get your melting temperature. Okay? Saturated membranes will have a higher melting temperature than unsaturated membranes. Membranes that have more cholesterol, as you see, that close to phospholipids will have higher melting points, and so on. And so, okay, and this, of course, is basically why unsaturations will tend to have a lower melting point and more fluidic membrane than saturation, just because of the amount of van der Waals bonds that are there. And of course, you can see the techniques which prevent many of those bonds to be formed. And of course, we've seen them. I hope you have a chance to watch that full version of this movie, because it's really awesome. Those kinesins, by the way, are extremely amazing. And imagine how many, just for this to move one foot after the other, how many weak bonds are being broken and reformed every time that happens. Just weak bonds with the same protein. So it's amazing stuff, of course, in addition to the other stuff. Okay. And of course, we just talked about gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. And by the way, it's called gram because of gram-positive or negative because of the gram stain. The gram-positive, the stain actually gets trapped in this peptidoglycan part of the membrane, and hence they appear the way they appear. While here, the stain really has a very thin peptidoglycan, so it's gram. All right. So in addition to phospholipids and glycolipids, which of the following is a major type of the membrane lipids? Which of the following is a major type of a membrane lipid? All right. Let's go. Oh, so what membrane component contains carbohydrates? Well, that's very simple. Let me open this here. Go ahead. All right, but hey, it's count as a click, so I know that at least right there. All right. Okay, in most organisms, non-thermophilic, mesophilic, like us, fatty acid molecules are attached via which kind of bond here? Which kind of bond? That's sort of an organic chemistry type question. Okay, so now we're gonna skip all the way to chapter 15. Yeah, so in between there are some other really important chapters, but it's first of all beyond again the scope of this course. Second of all, we don't have time, and so I mean they're very interesting stuff that hopefully if you are going to continue on this path, you'll be exposed to them in one way or another. We might, however, go back to signals transduction, which I think is chapter 14, and just to kind of talk superficially about how cells communicate with each other in multicellular organisms such as ourselves. Okay, so now we're going to talk about metabolic concepts, okay? Because we are going to talk for the rest of the semester, part 2 and 3 of the course, we're going to be talking about metabolism. So there are really principles that govern this whole thing, okay? And I thought it's a very good idea to know the rules of the game of metabolism, which every living organism, at least on this planet, follows in their chemical reactions. It's basically chemical reactions, all based on chemistry that we've taken in gen chem, organic chemistry. It's just rules like these, universal and amazingly useful. Okay? So between yesterday's posting of the lecture and today's lecture, I have a couple of slides that change, of course, that will be updated on the leaflet. Okay, so metabolic related activities. We have energy extraction or synthesis. Basically, that's metabolism. Okay? We either want to get energy, or we are going to have a lot of energy, hence we have to build stuff. Okay? Those are called catabolism for destroying molecules, or for energy extraction, or anabolism for building molecules. So this is some of the stuff or some of the terminologies that we are going to encounter. Both processes are part of the intermediary metabolism. As a matter of fact, we're going to be focused mostly on the central intermediary metabolism in this course. We can talk about other intermediary metabolism pathways, but the central is an absolute part and core of this course, because that will require the most kind of understanding and structural attachment to it. So that's why we have all these background and structures at the very first part of the course. Okay. All right. So there will be thousands of metabolic reactions. Even though there are thousands of metabolic reactions that will not get part of this course, obviously, otherwise it would be very bad. But we have thousands of metabolic reactions that are governing the life of every cell, life in general. But we have really only 6 types of reactions. That's it. 6 types of reaction. From it, we have these thousands of reactions. All right. Okay. So let me see here. Of course, there are a few types of molecules that are central to metabolism. We'll be talking about that. By the way, we are called heterotrophs. We eat molecules that are already made for us. Our food is already made for us. Okay. So there are other organisms that are independent, like let's say plants. These are called phototrophs because they use the sunlight to build stuff. Those are very awesome. We'll be talking about those in photosynthesis. And that, I assure you, will have incredible fun with that. So we are heterotrophs. There are chemotrophs. There are other organisms that use different kind of chemicals to eat. All right. So this is the metabolic chart. Okay. This metabolic chart, each one of those dots represents substrate and a product, and of course the line represents stuff. Of course, obviously, we're not going to cover this, okay? Because I see some faces beginning to be upset. But before we start, yelling at me, this is just snippets. What are we going to cover of this is what really matters. So this part here that you can see in the middle, and this is zoom out, obviously. This part is, excuse me, the central part of the metabolism, central intermediate part of the metabolism, that will involve glycolysis and other stuff. Basically, almost as you can see, it's in the middle, and almost all these lines converge to it because it's the linking between different pathways. A lot of stuff can be made from there, and a lot of stuff can be brought to it. Other stuff that will be covered here, energy metabolism, and this is really what is the ultimate thing for all the cells, the energy, in order to get all these kind of stuff going on in our life. So those are important part. What's up there? I can't read this. What is this? Complex carbohydrate, like glycogen and stuff like that. We're going to cover that, glycogen. So that's really linked to this. So that's easy. That's easy. Fatty acid metabolism, because that's again sort of energy, and you will obviously some of you will have this as a review, as a matter of fact. So that's how simple this stuff is. Amino acids, part of the proteins, and this is what we talk about again. So now amino acid metabolism, another piece of great news, is we're really not going to go through the detailed metabolic pathways all the 20. No, I'm not going to even memorize structures associated other than the 20 amino acids. And whatever. So then that's what we use here. What's that? Nucleotide metabolism, same thing. We only have those 5 nucleotides that we talk about. Beyond that, we are going to talk conceptually about stuff. Okay. What type of organism uses energy from sunlight? I need to review those before I talk. All right, let me open this. All right. Yes. We call those phototrophs. We don't call them autotrophs. No, there's no autotrophs. There are chemotrophs. There are heterotrophs. But no. All righty. So let's now talk about. We have 5 principles that every cell uses. It's amazing how all life forms have, for lack of better word, decided on these 5 things. First of all, coupling. Now remember, when we talk about thermodynamics at the beginning, we talk about reaction that the delta G is positive, negative, or 0. Right? Positive doesn't happen spontaneously. Negative, that's the one that happens spontaneously. You leave it alone, it will actually take place by itself. All right? Now, in the cell, there are reactions that are actually very hard to occur without input of energy, and hence that means consumption of energy. And so sometimes, actually, you will find that these reactions will use energy in order to do it. But most of the time, if there is some sort of coupling, and that means another reaction that follows the first reaction that has a huge negative number, then what's going to happen, you can couple them and you can add those. As you remember in thermodynamics, reactions that are mentioned, you can add the delta G of them. And that's exactly what the cells do. That's what enzymes do. And so you can see here A will be converted to B and C, but B will be converted in another reaction to D. All right? So B to D is very favorable thermodynamically, while A to B and C is not. But since they are together, somehow those enzymes tend to be together in the same thing. Am I hearing music? That's very cute. That's pretty good for the metabolism. So, since we have it like this, then the enzymes will be together, and A and B will be there, and the other enzyme that takes care of B to D will be right beside it. And because this enzyme is working, it will force the equilibrium to move towards completion, and hence the overall reaction A to C and D will be in a derivative state. That's called coupling. Enzymes do that often in the cell. That's why we have what we call pathways. That's why we have some kind of complex of enzymes attached together in a string. One will give the product to the other, and so on and so forth, in order to really try to minimize energy requirements. That's called coupling. Okay? That's a very, very amazing thing. Okay. All right. The second principle, the second metabolic concept, is the use of ATP. ATP is our universal energy currency. It's our dollar inside the system. Are there any other currency? Sometimes UTP, GDP, we'll see one example here and there. But basically, ATP is the one. And that's a nucleotide, by the way. That's a nucleotide. That's part of that RNA metabolism, ATP, right? We build RNA using nucleotides like this. So we've seen ATP before, and the energy that is actually stored in that phosphate, those three phosphates. Breaking one phosphate off will give us minus 7 kilocalories. That is the basic currency exchange for ATP. Now, if you break two of them, we'll get minus 11 kilocalories. Okay? You don't have to memorize those numbers, by the way. Yeah. All right. So ATP is our universal currency. Well, there are other molecules that definitely have more energy than ATP. But why ATP? Is again those phosphates. There are two unstabilizing actions for phosphate and one stabilizing action for the phosphates together. That makes ATP very ideal. Okay? Resonance stabilization. Those electrons, if you remember from organic chemistry and general chemistry, those electrons are resonating. They're moving halfway between that. That gives a general stability to those three phosphates. Okay? On the other hydration stabilization. And that means, because that negative part, water can turn into the positive pole of it, the hydrogen, and that will add stability. So two stabilizing forces, one unstabilizing force. That makes it perfect. And if you look at the energy of the famous molecules that you'll be seeing in metabolism, you see that ATP is right there in the middle. Phosphoenolpyruvate has actually much more energy than that. And of course, there's some less. But it's very hard to extract that energy without going through a process, metabolic process, and enzyme reaction. This is immediately available. Okay? This is why we use ATP. So that is our second principle. ATP is the universal energy. The third one is carbon source. Carbon source. That's what we all ourselves are fighting for. That's not, I think war happens because of carbon source at the end of the day. Because that is our energy source, carbon. What part of the carbon source is our energy? What part provides us with energy? Is actually the bonds that is between the carbon and other. Those have electrons. Okay, those have reduced electrons. Those electrons is really where the essence of energy and hence the essence of metabolism happens. And the metabolism, in the whole process of extracting energy, we're trying to get the energy that's associated with those electrons, those high energy electrons. Okay? So obviously, if we have unsaturation, something like this, for example, has less energy because you have double bonds and triple bonds. All right? So we need reduced molecules in order to extract the energy from them. We need to break those, oxidize them, in order to get those electrons. And those electrons then will have their own path, traveling path. Okay? So that's why methane has more energy than carbon dioxide, or than formic acid. You can see that delta G of that. Okay? So our purpose in this class, our purpose in life, is to extract energy from reduced compounds. Which means that glucose, fatty acids, and we'll talk about that. But that's what happens. And by the way, the breaking of the carbon source, be that glucose, carbohydrates, or lipids, or proteins, the breaking of that will eventually give us two terminal products. One of them is carbon dioxide. All those carbons will be broken to single carbons, carbon dioxide. That's the one that's shuttled by hemoglobin and also converted to carbonate that goes out. That's why we have the hemoglobin. And those electrons have to end up in a resting place, and that resting place happen to be oxygen in our lives. That's why we have, again, hemoglobin shuttling the oxygen. This is what we breathe. Okay? So, we are called aerobic organisms because we use oxygen. A lot of organisms are aerobic. Now, the theory has it that when life began on Earth, it didn't have that much oxygen, everybody was anaerobic. So that means it had something other than oxygen that will receive those high energy electrons. Okay? It were nitrates, sulfates, etc. As the atmosphere of the Earth changed, so did the life profile. Okay? But it turned out that using oxygen as our terminal electron acceptor, because remember we're breaking electrons from here, those electrons have to be accepted by somebody. Oxygen will be the most efficient. We get the most energy from burning, quote unquote, burning the molecule, as opposed to using something else. All right, so that's our second principle. Which of the following is the ultimate electron acceptor in us, in aerobic organisms? All right. We have oxygen. NAD is not an electron acceptor. Now that's very fun. Actually interesting because we can see now a little bit that NAD is also an electron carrier, but it's not a final electron acceptor. So somebody's ahead of me. That's very good. Okay. So the answer is of course oxygen. It's not any of those. And carbon dioxide, of course, is the final product of breaking, chopping those carbon sources from carbon-rich molecules. Okay, fantastic. Aha, now, the third principle also is based on carbon. Is something we call high phosphorus transfer. Now again, those phosphates and ATP have a lot of energy because of that repulsion. And we mentioned that molecules other than ATP have a lot of energy. And that's because of their association with phosphate. You will see, at least in one example during the semester, that this phosphate can be made unstable in order to release energy. And so sometimes the cells or the enzymes or the pathway will take advantage of this kind of event without spending energy, but it gets energy. So in one of the reactions that we will see in glycolysis, this rhodonite 3-phosphate is converted to 3-phosphoglyceric acid. It's an oxidation reaction. Of course, in organic chemistry, remember that aldehyde can be oxidized to carboxylic acid. Okay? But in the process, because it has a phosphate, the cell went ahead and had an intermediary reaction, which is this rhodonite 3-phosphate 2,1,3 bisphosphoglycerate, adding a phosphate from just an organic phosphate that's floating around in the cytoplasm. And now, all of a sudden, you have two phosphate molecules and 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. Have you seen this molecule before? Or have you seen the 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate? Have you seen the 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate? It's one of the metabolic byproducts, just like this one. Actually, it's a transfer of phosphate from 1 to 2, okay? Which the hemoglobin takes as a fuel in active metabolism. Anyway, I digress. So, 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. Now we have two phosphates here and a short molecule with negative charges, repulsion, right? So that the cell immediately take advantage of this, the next enzyme, and will take that phosphate and put it immediately in ADP to make ATP. All right? So it spent no energy, but it made energy, taking advantage of the high phosphorus transfer, because this phosphate is ready to leave. It really doesn't want to do anything with this molecule. because of this negative charge. And this is called high phosphorus transfer event, and actually it's called substrate level phosphorylation, because the substrate is the one that's phosphorylating ADP to make ADP. Okay? So that's still part of our third principles. Now, again, since everything rotates around those electrons being extracted from those single bonds all the way to the oxygen, the cell towards the end, and we will see that, utilizes something called gradient in order to form energy. And we'll see that in the mitochondria and in the chloroplast as well, as many of you might know, where protons are pumped actively outside. Sort of like a hydroelectric dam when you have all the water there. And then all of a sudden it will open those, and the flow of protons back through those gates, through those transporters, by the way, because they are charged, they cannot access the membrane. So those transporters will allow, only those transporters will allow to go through. And that flood of protons will actually give enough energy to make a lot of ATP. Okay? And of course, those electrons will end up on oxygen, and oxygen again will be reduced if those electrons go up. So this is called using the gradient creation. We have gradient in order to do the ATP. So we have phosphorus transfer, and we have the gradient. Okay, and we'll see that. That's another amazing improvement. All right, our fourth common motif. Those electrons, when we extract them from those single bond reduced carbon sources, in order for them to go all the way to oxygen, they cannot just roam free, right? Electrons cannot roam free. They need carriers. Okay? Electron carriers. Those electron carriers are some of those molecules. Okay? Now, even though I don't know if you memorize the structures of those molecules, but I know deep inside them, you know the structures of those molecules. Why? Why do I know that? Because we talked about simple aspects of those. So I'm not going to ask you to memorize it, nor am I going to ask you to identify them structurally in the exam, but I definitely have to know those molecules. Let's talk about the first one. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, NAD. All right? It has a nicotine ring here, nicotine amide, because it has an amide here, and then it has adenine here, and notice this. What is this? This is a ribose with a phosphate, ribose with phosphate. That's nucleotide. So we have nicotine amide, we have adenine dinucleotide. All right? Two nucleotides attached together. The nicotine amide nucleotide and the adenine nucleotide, and hence we got the name. That thing can carry 2 electrons at a time. Okay? And actually the site is right here at the nicotine amide. Where do we get nicotine amide from? We get it from medicine, from vitamins, from our vitamin consumption. We cannot make this. As a matter of fact, bacteria makes it for us, and we have to take supplements. We're really going to notice at the end of this course that, metabolically speaking, we are probably the most pathetic creatures on this planet. We really cannot do many things. We rely on many outside sources, including our gut bacteria or microflora. All right, so I can carry here one thing about nucleotide, or NAD from now on, that it can carry only one proton, while the other proton will be like a satellite flying around it. The other one is flavine adenine dinucleotide. This is the flavine. That's also a vitamin, by the way. Flavine, you can see it on the stereobox sometimes, flavine. So that's flavine, and that's adenine, and that's dinucleotide. Notice the thing that's interesting about this, that the ribose of the flavine nucleotide is actually often chained rather than a ring. That's right. So it's a flavine adenine dinucleotide, or FAD. That thing can carry 2 electrons right here, but also it can carry the associated protons. So it becomes FADH2 rather than NADH plus H plus. All right, so those are carriers. Those are very important. Those are the ones that are faithfully carrying those high energy electrons that we extract from food stuff, and they carry them faithfully through different compartments in the cell. We will follow the journey of those actually as we establish. Without those, we have no way to carry the electrons, energy is wasted. Do that. Okay? All right. Now, part of that motif is also using electrons when we have plenty of food stuff, plenty of energy. Now, when we have plenty, we have to build stuff in order to store them. Okay? When we build stuff, That's called reductive synthesis. Why we call it reductive synthesis? Because those electrons will be reducing stuff in order to make a single bond molecules like fatty acids, like glycogen, to store it. In the reductive building, in the synthesis, in the anabolism, we don't use NAD and FAD. We can use NADPH. So for anabolism, we use NAD and FAD, but for the synthesis, we use NADPH. That's exactly like the NAD, except it has a phosphate attached. It's called nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, NAD, and it carries 2 electrons. Okay, so NADP is for synthesis, provide electrons for synthesis, while NAD and FAD provide electrons for actually anabolism, for metabolism, for extracting energy. Another motif is that carbon sources or carbon atoms, as we are exchanging this energy in the chaos of the metabolism, actually it's not chaotic at all, it's just reorganized. But as carbon is being exchanged, those have to be carried by carriers as well. So not just electrons have to be carried, but carbon units have to be carried. One of the very important carriers is coenzyme A. You don't have to remember the structure. You definitely need to know coenzyme A. Yeah? Coenzyme A has several segments. One of them is again nucleotide. So again, the structure is not very foreign to you, right? It has pantosine A, which is another vitamin, coenzyme A, and then it has this beta-mercaptan part, and this here, the SAH part, is where we have carbon units. Usually the carbon units are either acetyl, that's 2 carbon chains, or acyl, very long chains. So you can see its usage in fatty acid exchange, and carry fatty acids. Okay? So that's a carbon unit carrier. Are there any other? Yes, there are. The stable here. Do you need to memorize the stable? No. No, you don't need to memorize the stable. You need to be aware of it. Coenzyme A is one of them that carries acyl that has pantosine A. It's a vitamin, right? We have to get that in our food. We have to get that from bacteria. Okay, other ones, let's see here. See, all of them are derived from vitamins, or most of them at least are derived from vitamins. But we will see a tetrahydrofolate that carries 1 carbon unit. It's very important because carbon itself is dormant. It cannot do much. That's why you have to have an activated carrier. Glucose has to be carried also in order to do reactions. We'll see that. Everybody needs a carrier inside the cell. Everybody needs some sort of chemical escort that makes it activated, hence makes it pliable and available to do reactions. All right? Let's see here. The tetrahydrofolate again has folate, it forms carbon. We have S-adenosine it's a methyl group, methyl carrier. Uridine diphosphate, that's a nucleotide, it carries glucose. You'll see all those stuff. Anyway, I don't want you to memorize any of that stuff. I need you to know coenzyme A for sure. Okay? Because we're going to repeat it so many times. I need you to know that it derives from vitamins. I need you to know that coenzyme A, for example, comes from pantosine A. Since we talked about NAD and FAD, I need you to know that they come from riboflavin and nicotinamide vitamins. Vitamins that we all eat, we all love, we have it all the time. Okay. Those are called activated carriers. Okay? So that's a very important thing. There is no, you will never see glucose on its own in the body. You're never going to see fatty acid on its own in the body. It has to have some as well. All right. Those are the limited types of reactions. Of those thousands of reactions that I talked about, those are the 6 types that we talk. That's actually Duffy's right. Then we need 6 types of reactions, organic chemistry reactions that we already taken in organic chemistry are covered here. That's it. We have oxidation reduction. That's where electrons are exchanged. Okay? Then we have ligation. Okay? Ligation means putting 2 things together. Right? Well, there's sometimes overlap, but putting 2 things together. Did we see a ligation before in this course? Where? Where did we see ligation? In cloning, right? When we had 2 DNA cloned with each other, we have to add ligase, and that's called ligase, DNA ligase. That's called ligation. Isomerization. We see that we have deconfigurations and no configurations. During the reaction, there will be some of them that you're going to have to isomerize stuff. Those are amazing enzymes. They really can recognize what protein are we talking about, what isomers. They know their left and right. Group transfer, methyl group, phosphate group, aldehyde group, carboxylation, amine groups, those are all group transfer. All right? Hydrolysis, hydrolytic reactions, where you need to add water to break stuff. Condensation, you need to take water from stuff. Okay? And then addition and removal of functional groups, and that's pretty much almost similar to group transfer, but it has more functional aspects. But those are the 6 kind of reactions that we can see. Nothing other than those. So let's talk about our last common molecule. With thousands and thousands of reactions in a very busy cell, especially in the liver, very busy cell, muscle, obviously you can need control. Because otherwise, reactions happen all the time, and you are going to be wasting an awful lot of space. And metabolism is tightly regulated, elegantly regulated, beautifully regulated. There are so many levels of regulation, so many knobs that can control metabolism, that chemically those can really identify. We have many sensors out there that sense different material, that sense different compounds that give a signal for something. The one that we've already seen is carbon dioxide and 2,3-phosphoglycerol. Hemoglobin senses those, and hence it behaves accordingly, releasing oxygen. But now imagine this overlapped with hundreds of other controls. And you can have yourself a very beautifully organized oil metabolic machine that does amazing stuff. All right, so what are the levels of control? Amount of enzyme. You add more enzyme, you have faster reaction. You take an enzyme out, the reaction stops. If it's a spontaneous reaction, it's going to be extremely slow. Okay? So obviously that's one thing you can do, remove the enzyme. All right? How can you remove the enzyme? Huh? Peptidase, yes. You can break an enzyme, and then you can use those amino acids to synthesize anything. You can break it. You cannot make it in the first place. So why go to the DNA and transfer it and translate? You can stop it right there. Okay? You can stop the control at that level. Allosteric control. We've seen that in hemoglobin, right? You can have another site, other than the active site, where there are other buttons that can make it either go slower or faster. Allosteric control. Inhibitors make things go slower, right? Okay? That's called allosteric control. Feedback inhibition. Feedback inhibition. So let's say A is converted to B through an enzyme. If we have a lot of B can loop back to the enzyme, okay, and tell the enzyme that there's a lot of B. Stop taking A, and then the enzyme will slow down. And that can happen through allosteric, by the way, interaction, but called feedback inhibition. In allosteric, the umbrella of allosteric, it could be any foreign chemicals, but in feedback inhibition, it has to be part of the pathway. It could be several reactions down that will feedback in the first reaction, slowing it down. Feedback inhibition is very important. There is actually, similarly, there is a feed-forward activation as well. Let's see that. Modification. We are very familiar with modification. We've seen how proteins are modified in order to make them functional, with carbohydrates, with phosphates, etc. As a matter of fact, this is a very important part of regulation. Sometimes you don't want to destroy the protein with peptidase. You want it around. So what you do is you slap covalently phosphate on it, phosphorylate it, and that will slow it down or make it faster. Okay? So you can add something that will slow it down or make it faster. That's called modification, covalent modification. How about accessibility to substrate? Just like enzymes, if you take the substrate away, the enzyme has nothing to work with. Take that away. Okay? So those are the 3 main levels of controlling metabolism. And we will see a lot of those. And we're going to have to actually be very familiar with those. Those structures have a lot of maps, very fun maps that we have to kind of work with in order to figure out how to slow or speed up the metabolic pathway. Let's have this good. Reaction pathways that exclusively transform fuel, carbon sources, into energy. What are those called? What are those called in the sophisticated science language? metabolic, not anaerobic, it's metabolic, that's right. That's right. Amphibiolic, by the way, reactions, I didn't mention, but there's usually stuff that goes both ways, just like amphibiolic. All right, so in conclusion, basically, and I'm not done yet, in conclusion for this part, is that those are the 5 things that govern metabolism. 5 concepts that govern metabolism. Anabolism, metabolism, that's one thing. Breaking and building. The ATP, oxidation of carbon sources to generate ATP, which results basically on extraction of those electrons, high energy electrons. Or if we're building, we have to put those high energy electrons in. We build molecules because sometimes we have to build something else. So we have to put energy in it. We have to put those high energy electrons in it that are inherently carried by reduced compounds. Let's see here. A few types, the 6 types we've seen of the reactions. And then, of course, the regulation. Those are in common between every cell, from bacteria to us, and considering us as the most sophisticated, even though metabolically we're not. So here, this is a graph that I really liked in the book. And by the way, just to note it, whoever has that 8th edition of the book, this is somehow different from the book, but it's the same principle. And this is talking about basically food and homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically when we are maintaining the steady and constant flow of nutrients coming in and out. Homeostasis. That is like at rest, like the minimum that we need to keep the cells going. And so if we talk about food stuff, we will see that we're going to have fat, carbohydrate, and proteins. Okay? That we will be breaking molecularly into their building blocks. Amino acids, monosaccharides, and fatty acids. All right? You will see here that in the middle is a carbohydrate, and there's a good reason for this. Because really, glucose, or carbohydrates in general, and hence glucose, will be the best, fastest source that can go to anywhere. Anyway, as a matter of fact, if you can see here from glucose pool, right, that's the biggest pool here. So from glucose pool, the brain metabolism really can do something else. We'll see under very extreme circumstances, we use ketone bodies, right? So that's later. And then you have here the other tissues. So glucose is really very important. Now from glucose, you will see things are going toward proteins. And we will see those pathways. We can make glucose from proteins. Okay? We can make proteins from glucose as well. Because we can make amino acids. Fatty acids, on the other hand, they also attach to glucose. And unfortunately, from fatty acids in us, right? I'm not telling everybody. We can only go one way from fat to glucose. We can go one way from glucose to fat, but otherwise fat can provide its own source of energy. It unfortunately cannot be converted to glucose. Not unfortunately, but this is how things are. So this is basically very nice chart. I'll try to get references every now and then, just to kind of see where we are in metabolism. But it's extremely intricate and it's accurate. And of course, urea cycle we'll be talking about toward the very end of this semester.